everyone, Kelly here, and since it's the first of the month, I wanted to share with you all my May TBR. And last month I went really relaxed on my TBR because, the world was kind of falling apart and there was a lot of anxiety, and so I just kind of didn't stress myself about following through on a TBR. But then I ended up reading a ton of stuff in April, and I've been using reading a lot as an escape, so now I went completely the opposite direction, and my May TBR is kind of ridiculous. So yeah, I'm gonna be sharing a bunch of books with you today, and who knows if all these are gonna be read. I'm not gonna push myself to read all of these or anything like that, but I have so many ideas of things I want to read in May, so I'm just gonna share them with you. But first of all, I'm gonna do my scratch off. So if you are new here, every month this year, I've been picking 2 books to scratch off from this board I made, and they're books that I kind of bought as cover buys, and I'm going to either read them in that month or get rid of them. Though once again this month I'm going to be a little more relaxed on this. My 2 that I got last month were The Perfect Stranger, which I already reviewed. It would have been on one of my recent reads the last week, and that was okay. It was like a 3-star. And then the other one I got was Wind Up Bird Chronicle, and I did not finish that one or pick it up in April. It's a really big, more dense book, so it just wasn't something I was in the mood for in April, but I'm still going to pick 2 right now. So let's pick from this top corner. All right, and I got Don't You Cry, which I believe is a thriller. Yes, so Don't You Cry by Mary Kubica, and this is the thriller. This actually has really horrible ratings on Goodreads, which is why I haven't picked it up yet, but I got it from a used bookstore because I recognize the author's name. So I thought I would give it a try, and if I don't like it, I'll give Mary Kubica another try since this one is one of her lower rated ones. And so that was the first pick. Now let's pick another one. I'm gonna go just right here towards the middle. Well, sorry for the weird cut, but somebody came down the steps right when I was doing that scratch off. This is the problem I've had recently of trying to find a time alone to film, because if you didn't see in some of my other videos recently, my nephew and his girlfriend live with us now during the whole pandemic until they can move into their school in the fall, hopefully. And then now my other nephew is going to be moving in 2 days. So this is what I deal with. So I'm sorry, this probably was a very awkward cut, and you kind of missed probably some of me scratching this off. But what I scratched off was Just Listen, which is a Sarah Dessen book, which is a YA book. I believe it's probably got a romance or just family issues, things like that. I don't know anything about this. I just picked it up at a thrift store or maybe even a library sale. Yeah, it was a library sale. Probably it was 25 cents. And I'd heard of Sarah Dessen as a YA contemporary author, so I just wanted to give her a try. I have heard that this one is one that other people I know have enjoyed. So I guess I'm trying out my first Sarah Dessen in May. So these are the 2, which is a good pick. I've got a thriller and a contemporary. And so those will be ones from my scratch off that I will do in May. And then next I want to go through my keep, read, or unhaul. So if you're new here, every month this year at the middle of the month or towards the beginning, I post a video where you get to choose from books that I bought 2 years ago, which ones I'm going to keep, which I'm going to read that next month, and which ones I'm going to unhaul. And so in my keep, I had to choose between a middle grade and an adult novel, which one I keep, and then I was going to get rid of the other one. You guys voted for The Ethan I Was Before, which is the middle grade novel. I'm not going to be reading this one in May, but I am keeping it, and I just want to let you know that you voted to keep that one. So I'll be getting rid of Close Enough to Touch. So that's my first unhaul. And then I might as well talk about the other unhauls. I had a couple of rereads and another middle grade novel in my ones for you to choose to unhaul. You voted for me to unhaul The Grapes of Wrath, and I don't have my copy because I've actually already given it away. But I gave it to my nephew's girlfriend who is living with us because she wanted to read it, so she is enjoying it. So it's going to a good home. So I already have gotten rid of the one you voted for, but I'm also going to unhaul Zero Tolerance. I looked it up some more and it just doesn't seem like something that I'm going to enjoy. I bought this one when I was reading a ton of middle grade and didn't realize that I just enjoy middle grade fantasy more than I enjoy middle grade contemporary. And as I looked into it, this wasn't the contemporary that I think I will enjoy. So I'm gonna get rid of this one as well. So I'm actually getting rid of 3 books total, close enough to touch this one, and Grapes of Wrath, which I've already gotten rid of. And then you guys were voting on 2 different categories of books for me to read. And the first one was middle grade novels. And of the ones that I gave you to vote on, the one that won by a large margin was The War That Saved My Life by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And I'm glad this one won because I've been meaning to read this one for a long time. It's a very hyped historical fiction novel. So I will definitely be reading this one in May because I just really want to, and it should be an easy read because it's middle grade and has big font. And this was a World War I story about a girl who who is leaving, I believe, London because of escaping the war and is living with this other woman, but it turns out it's a really good move for her because her mother was abusive, and I've heard just amazing things about this book. So this will definitely be happening in May. And then the other one that you voted for was out of a bunch of adult books, and you guys picked Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng, and I'm really glad you picked this one too because it turns out that May is and there's a big Asian readathon happening. And so this is actually like the group book for the Asian readathon. I'll put a link down below to that readathon and who's hosting it and everything. And I'm not gonna do this as part of the buddy read with the readathon because I'm actually buddy reading this with Chloe from the channel Always Booked, which I'll link her down below. So that's all the ones that you voted on for Keep Read Unhaul. So now we're going to move on to my buddy reads. And I have the one that I've been doing all year, which is the Anna Long 2020, where we're reading one Anna Green Gables book every month. And we are already on, is this book 5? Yeah, because it's May. So this is book 5, Anne's House of Dreams by Ellen Montgomery. And I'm really excited for this one. Book 4 was not my favorite. It was my least favorite in the series. But it was also written different. It was written in like an epistolary format. There was letters, but it went back and forth between letters and regular narrative. So I'm looking forward to getting back to just a regular, straightforward narrative in this book. And I'm very excited. I can't really tell you what's going to happen in this book because, you know, we're 5 books into it. But I'm very happy to be back in Anne's world. The other buddy read that I'm doing is An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. And this is part of a book club on Tori's channel, which is Tecken Novels. I'll link her down below. She's a small booktuber that just started a couple months ago, so go and watch her, check her out. She's doing a lot of content. She's new, but she is pumping out videos quite a lot, so go check her out and support her. And she's doing a buddy read of this book, and she actually bought this book for me off my wish list, so I really want to read this in May and participate with that buddy read. This is a standalone fantasy novel, though I've heard that she's writing a sequel now, but it was written originally as a standalone, and all I know about this is that it has like different sects of magicians, like different houses type of thing, and that there is a magician school maybe, or place where they all congregate. I don't know, but it sounds really interesting and I've heard great things about it. So I'm excited to do the buddy read for that. And in May, we are reading 2 books with Murphy's Patreon. The first one is The Giant Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. This is the first book in the Stormlight Archives, which is an epic fantasy book. It's huge. And the reason we're reading this one is that a lot of people in the group want to reread it, and some of us haven't read the Stormlight at all, but we want to reread or read the books for the first time before the 4th book comes out in November. So what we're doing on that Patreon is reading one of these every other month so that we have 2 months to finish this giant book. So we'll be reading it in May, but we have June as an overflow month before we read the next one in July. I'm nervous, but I'm excited because I have liked everything I've read by Brandon Sanderson so far. I'm just nervous because I haven't really dived into like a giant epic fantasy of this size, but my husband loved the series. I'm really hoping I will enjoy it. Nothing else, I'm going to give it a try and try to get through the series this year and hope I enjoy it. And then because that book is so big, we chose a smaller book as our second buddy read, and we chose A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin, and this is the first book in her Earthsea series. And this is an older book. I can't remember when these were written, but It's been around for a while, so it's an older fantasy book, but it's fairly short, like only 240 some pages. But I've heard these are really good and fun, but like kind of a older reading style. So I'm interested to get into that. Should read really fast compared to Way of Kings. And then the other thing that I am reading that's kind of part of a readathon is the BookTube Readathon 2020, which is hosted by Alex Black, and you reread a book every month. And the prompt for May was to reread a book that you either DNF'd or didn't like the first time. And I'm going to read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And that's because when I read this for the first time, I was like, I think I was around 21, 22, something. I was young and I really hated it the first time I read it, but I also didn't really read classics back then. Like, it just wasn't my thing. I was more of a New York Times bestseller reader back then, so I wanted fast-paced books. But now I can appreciate a more slower, character-driven book, so I want to give Jane Austen another try. So I'm going to hopefully read Pride and Prejudice in May. And then that's all the books that I like really want to put on my TBR. But when I was looking up Little Fires Everywhere and seeing that about the Asian Readathon, like, cause I kind of followed a bunch of stuff online, found out about the Asian Readathon in May, I wanted to also put in some different books that I own by Asian authors that I would like to get to if I have time. So I have a stack of books here, I think 5 books, and they're just ones I would pick up if I am in the mood for something different than what I already have on my TBR, but I want to read some Asian authors to kind of support that Asian Readathon that's going on all of May. Like I said, I'll link the readathon down below. First, I have The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami, who is a Japanese author, and this one was one of my scratch-off picks last month, and I just didn't get to it, so I thought it works for the Asian Readathon. I'll just put it as a possibility this month. I have The School of For Good and Evil by Saman Shinani, and this one was one of the ones you could have voted for my middle grade read. And when in that video, that my Keep Read Unhaul video, several people said they really loved the series, and so I'm kind of interested to pick it up. So put it in as a possibility. And then I have A Long Way Home by Saru Brearley, and this is a nonfiction novel about a boy who was born in India, but then gets lost from his family and ends up being adopted by a family in Australia, and his like journey back to his birth family in India. And then I have a young adult romance called I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu. And I think that this one specifically has some elements of K-dramas in it. She is of Korean descent. She's an American of Korean descent. And there's some stuff about K-dramas and television stuff in here, which is not something I know a lot about, but I'm interested to check it out. And this should be a fast read since it's a YA romance. And then I have a thriller I've really wanted to read, which is Out by Natsuo Kirino. And she is a Japanese author. I believe this has actually been translated. And I don't know much about this at all, but I heard Kate from Kate File talking about it. And she reads a lot of Japanese literature. And she said this was a really great thriller. And so I went and bought it just from her recommendation and didn't really check into it. But the Japanese thrillers that I have read so far, I have really enjoyed, so I'm looking forward to giving this one a try. And then the last possibility is Written in the Stars by Aisha Saeed, and this is from the viewpoint of a Pakistani-American girl and her family, I believe, wanting her to be in an arranged marriage or something like that. I did read the first chapter of this for a try a chapter tag, the same one that I did, Little Fires Everywhere. So I'm excited to also actually read this one. So those are 6 books that I could possibly read in May that would go along with the Asian Readathon. Yeah, and that's it. If you want to talk about any of these books, I'd love to hear from you down below if you've read any of them. Also, I didn't mention this, but because I'm not putting specific books on my TBR, but I am participating in the Light versus Dark Romance Readathon, which is happening right now, May 1st through 3rd. And it is hosted by a bunch of people, but I believe it was created by Jen from the Book Refuge. I didn't create a TBR for that because I'm just basically reading any romance books that I feel like reading in the next 3 days. So just thought I would let you know because you'll probably see a recent reads coming out from me soon that has a bunch of romance books in it. But I don't know which ones I'm gonna read. Just gonna be mood reading this weekend. And that's it for me. If there's a book you're really excited for, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, bye.